The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hiss. Minho stepped through them, his black diplomatic suit a stark contrast to the colorful robes and scales of the alien beings around him. He was the first human to ever walk these halls, and every eye, antenna, and optical sensor turned to watch him. The chamber stretched high above, its crystal walls showing the stars beyond. Hundreds of different alien species filled the curved seating areas. Some looked like giant insects, others resembled walking plants, and a few seemed to be made of living metal. They all watched the human with curiosity and barely hidden concern. Minho walked to the center of the room where a simple podium waited. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. He had trained for this moment for years, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of standing before the rulers of the galaxy. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Minho began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. I am Ambassador Minho, representing the human species and the planet Earth. We come in peace, seeking friendship and understanding with all civilized beings. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through some sections of the audience. Near the front, a tall being with blue-green skin and forearms leaned forward. This was Counselor Dara, the military analyst who had spent months studying humanity's communications and technology. Dara had seen the human wars through intercepted broadcasts. She knew about their nuclear weapons, their chemical explosives, their simple metal bullets fired from tubes. Compared to the energy shields and plasma cannons used by most galactic species, human weapons seemed almost primitive. Her reports had classified humanity as a moderate threat level, dangerous enough to watch, but not enough to worry about. Welcome, Ambassador Minho, Dara said. Her voice translated into perfect Korean through his earpiece. We have observed your species from afar. Your people show promise, though your technology remains basic by galactic standards. Minho nodded politely. We understand we have much to learn. That is why we seek membership in this great alliance. High above the chamber, aboard the human starship New Seoul, Commander Junho watched the proceedings through a live feed. His ship hung in space near the Council's massive station, dwarfed by the alien vessels around it. To any observer, the New Seoul looked like a simple exploration vessel, which it was mostly. Junho's crew of 50 moved quietly around the bridge, monitoring everything. They wore simple gray uniforms and carried what looked like basic sidearms. The ship's visible weapons were equally unimpressive. A few missile tubes and some defensive lasers. Nothing that would concern the massive alien warships nearby. But Junho's real attention was focused on a series of readouts that no alien scanner could detect. Deep within the New Seoul, systems hummed quietly. Emergency protocols stood ready. Contingency plans waited in computer memory. The crew looked relaxed, but each person was prepared for 17 different combat scenarios and 43 different evacuation procedures. This was humanity's way. They hoped for peace, but they prepared for everything else. Back in the council chamber, the formal ceremonies continued. Species after species welcomed humanity to the galaxy. They offered trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and territorial boundaries. Everything was polite and civilized. Counselor Tae-hyun, a reptilian being with golden scales, studied the medical data that human diplomats had provided. As the council's chief xenobiologist, he was responsible for understanding new species. But something about the human physiology reports bothered him. Human bone density was remarkably high. Their muscle fibers were incredibly efficient. Their brains showed unusual activity patterns, especially in areas related to pattern recognition and tactical thinking. Most disturbing of all, humans seemed to have backup systems for almost everything. Extra kidneys, redundant blood vessels, multiple ways to process oxygen. Counselor Tae-hyun, whispered his assistant, a small furry creature named Cumin. These readings, they suggest humans evolved under extreme stress. What kind of world produces beings like this? Tae-hyun's golden eyes narrowed as he reviewed the data again. A dangerous one, he replied quietly. Very dangerous. But when Tae-hyun tried to share his concerns with other council members, they dismissed him. Humanity had already demonstrated their peaceful intentions. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were small and lightly armed. What could possibly go wrong? The welcome ceremony reached its climax as the council's leader, an ancient being called the Speaker, rose from the central dais. The Speaker looked like a tall tree made of silver metal, with branches that moved like arms and leaves that chimed softly in an alien breeze. "Humanity," the speaker announced, "by unanimous vote of this council, we welcome you as provisional members of our galactic community. You will have access to our trade networks, our scientific databases, and our protection. In return, you agree to follow galactic law and maintain peaceful relations with all member species." Minho bowed deeply. "On behalf of all humanity, I accept these terms with gratitude and humility." As the ceremony ended and the various alien delegates began to leave, many felt satisfied with the day's work. Humanity seemed reasonable and manageable. They would be easy to integrate and control if necessary. Only a few beings noticed the subtle details that others missed. The way Minho's eyes constantly tracked potential threats and exit routes, how his hands remained loose and ready despite his calm appearance, the fact that he never once seemed surprised or overwhelmed by the alien environment around him. Commander Junho continued, monitoring from the new Sol. His sensors detected the energy, signatures of dozens of alien weapons, pointed at his ship. Standard procedure for first contact, he assumed. His crew remained calm, but their readiness levels increased by small, invisible increments. In his quarters, Junho reviewed the intelligence reports one more time. The aliens thought they understood humanity based on intercepted communications about human wars and weapons. But those communications only showed what humans did to each other during conflicts. They said nothing about what humans could do when they truly needed to survive. The galaxy was about to learn the difference. As the great space station turned in its slow orbit, carrying representatives of 1,000 worlds, most beings felt optimistic about the future. Humanity would be a minor addition to their grand civilization. Perhaps they would contribute some interesting art or develop useful trade goods. None of them suspected that they had just welcomed the most dangerous species in galactic history into their midst. And none of them realized that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't something they carried. It was something they were. 3 months had passed since humanity joined the Galactic Council. The honeymoon period was ending and the first real test was about to begin. Captain So-Young stood on the bridge of the Busan Merchant, watching the asteroid field of the Kepler 442 system slowly turn outside her viewports. Her mining ship was not beautiful. It looked like a flying factory, all gray metal and industrial equipment. But it was exactly where it was supposed to be, extracting valuable minerals from rocks that had floated in space for millions of years. Her crew of 30 worked steadily around the clock. The mining operation was going perfectly, ahead of schedule and under budget. In a few more weeks, they would have enough rare metals to supply human colonies for months. That was when the hegemony ships arrived. "Captain," called out Minsu from the sensor station, "I'm reading multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Large ships, military configuration." So-Young moved to look over his shoulder at the display. 12 vessels had appeared at the edge of the system, sleek predatory shapes that looked nothing like merchant vessels or peaceful explorers. "Identification?" she asked calmly. "Hegemony Alliance Fleet," Minsu replied. 3 heavy cruisers, 9 destroyers. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the lead hegemony ship. War Chief Dongwook appeared, a massive creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a lizard, with thick gray skin and small yellow eyes that burned with aggression. "Human vessel," Dongwook growled, his translated voice filling the Busan Merchant's bridge. "You are mining in disputed territory. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." So-Young activated her own transmission. "War Chief Dongwook, this system was legally assigned to human development by the Galactic Council 3 months ago. Our permits are all in order. If you have a dispute, please file it through proper diplomatic channels." Dongwook's yellow eyes narrowed. "Proper channels are for the weak. This system belongs to the hegemony. Leave now or we will remove you." The transmission cut off. So-Young studied the tactical display showing the alien ships moving closer. Each hegemony vessel was 3 times larger than her mining ship and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Captain," asked her second officer Hiemen, "should we call for help?" "No," So-Young replied quietly. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a situation but are handling it according to standard protocols." Around the bridge, her crew began moving with practiced efficiency. To any outside observer, they looked calm but concerned, exactly what you would expect from civilian miners facing a military threat. But beneath this surface calm, something else was happening. Systems that had been dormant came online, Protocols that existed only in encrypted files activated themselves. The Busan merchant began to change in ways that were invisible to the approaching enemy. War Chief Dongwook watched from his flagship as the human ship continued its mining operations. The small vessel should be running by now, its crew terrified by the sight of superior hegemony firepower. Instead, it just sat there, continuing to extract minerals as if nothing had happened. "Perhaps they don't understand," suggested his tactical officer, a thin creature named Kangman. "Their technology is primitive. Maybe they cannot detect our weapons." Dongwook's laugh was like gravel grinding together. "Then we will teach them. Target their engines with ion cannons. Disable them, but do not destroy. We want prisoners, to send a message to other human colonies." The hegemony ships opened fire with precisely calibrated ion beams designed to shut down enemy ships without killing the crews. It was a standard intimidation tactic that had worked on dozens of species over the centuries. The beams struck the Busan merchant and stopped. Where there should have been vulnerable hull plating, invisible barriers deflected the energy harmlessly into space. Where there should have been exposed engines, armored shutters had closed to protect critical systems. "What?" Dongwook roared. "How are they doing that?" His answer came 30 seconds later. The human mining ship suddenly wasn't a mining ship anymore. Weapon ports opened along its hull. Not the crude missile tubes or energy cannons that aliens expected, but something else entirely. Streams of what looked like simple metal projectiles began firing from the Busan merchant. But these projectiles moved with impossible precision and struck with devastating effect. The first hegemony destroyer simply stopped working. Its engines went dead, its weapons powered down, its life support system switched to emergency backup. The crew was alive and unharmed, but their ship was completely helpless. The second destroyer tried to return fire, but found that its targeting systems were being jammed by signals it couldn't identify or counter. Its shots went wide while more human projectiles found their mark with surgical accuracy. "They're using kinetic weapons," gasped Kangman, staring at his instruments in disbelief. "Simple metal slugs. But the targeting is impossible. They're hitting components we didn't even know were vulnerable." One by one, the hegemony ships found themselves disabled. Not destroyed, not damaged in any way that would harm their crews, but completely unable to function. It was like watching a master surgeon at work, cutting away disease while leaving healthy tissue untouched. Captain So-young monitored the engagement from her command chair, occasionally giving quiet orders to her crew. To her, this wasn't a battle. It was a problem-solving exercise. The aliens had threatened her people and her mission. Following standard human protocols, she had neutralized the threat with minimum force necessary. "Target the command ship's communication array," she told her weapons officer, Jemin. "We need to make sure they can call for help once we're done here." "Yes, Captain," Jamin replied, adjusting his targeting solution. Kinetic penetrator away. A single projectile no larger than a pencil struck the flagship's main communication dish with perfect accuracy. Instead of destroying it, the impact created a small hole that would require simple repairs but allowed the system to function. War Chief Dongwook found himself in the humiliating position of commanding a fleet that had been defeated by a single mining ship using weapons that his people had stopped using thousands of years ago. His ships were disabled but intact. His crews were alive but helpless. He could send messages but not move or fight. "This is impossible," he whispered, staring at the tactical display. "They used mining equipment. Simple kinetic weapons. How did they?" The answer came from his science officer, a nervous creature named Sung-hun, who had been analyzing the human attack patterns. "Sir," Sung-hun reported, "they didn't use military weapons at all. Those were modified mining charges, designed for precision asteroid braking. The targeting system was their mineral analysis scanner, modified to identify ship components instead of ore deposits. Even their projectiles were just processed metal from the asteroids they've been mining." Dongwook's yellow eyes widened as understanding struck him. They turned their entire mining operation into a weapon system in less than a minute. "Yes, sir. And, sir, according to my analysis, they never activated any primary weapon systems. Everything they used against us was improvised from industrial equipment. The implications of this hung in the air like poison gas. If humans could do this much damage with mining tools, what could they do with actual weapons?" Captain So-young's voice came over the communication channel, calm and professional. "War Chief Dongwook, Your ships are disabled, but your crews are safe. We will begin repairs on your vessels shortly so you can leave the system safely. In the future, please resolve territorial disputes through proper diplomatic channels. As human repair shuttles launched from the Busan Merchant to help the disabled hegemony ships, Dongwook realized he was seeing something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans had completely defeated his fleet, then immediately began helping their enemies. They fought with devastating efficiency, then showed mercy with equal precision. What kind of species did that? More importantly, what kind of species could do that? News of the Kepler incident spread through galactic communication networks faster than light itself. Within hours, every major species knew that a single human mining ship had defeated 12 hegemony warships using nothing but industrial equipment. The reaction was immediate and universal. Fear. Admiral Na-young paced the floor of her command center on the Council Defense Station. Through the massive windows, she could see the home fleets of dozens of species. Thousands of warships that had never worked together before, now gathering in unprecedented unity. "Show me the analysis again," she ordered her intelligence officer, a spider-like being named Jaewon. The holographic display showed the Kepler battle from multiple angles. Jaewon's 8 eyes focused on different parts of the recording simultaneously as he explained what they were seeing. The human ship, Busan Merchant, took 37 seconds to reconfigure from mining operations to combat readiness. They used modified ore processing equipment to fire kinetic projectiles with targeting accuracy of 99.7%. Most disturbing, Admiral, they never once targeted crew quarters or life support systems. Admiral Na-young stopped pacing. They could have killed everyone, easily. Instead, they chose to disable the ships while keeping all enemy personnel alive and healthy. This suggests either advanced tactical computers capable of real-time casualty minimization or... Jaewon paused, his mechanical voice uncertain. Or what? Or every human crew member is capable of combat calculations that would challenge our best military AI systems. The door to the command center hissed open, and General Seok-jin strode in. His species, the Confederacy of Zeph, had been at war with someone for the past 600 years. They understood military threats better than most. "Admiral," Seok-jin announced, "my government has authorized a reconnaissance mission to observe human military capabilities directly. If we're going to evaluate the threat level, we need better intelligence than intercepted mining ship encounters." Admiral Na-young turned to study the general's insectoid features. "Where?" "Earth's moon. Our deep space monitors have detected regular military exercises in that area. Small scale, but it might give us insight into their actual combat doctrine." 3 days later, a Zeph stealth ship drifted in the outer edge of the Sol system. Its advanced sensors focused on Earth's natural satellite. General Seok-jin commanded the mission personally, along with his best intelligence analysts. "There," pointed out Commander Minji, indicating a cluster of small craft near the moon's surface. "Looks like a training exercise in progress." The Zeph ship's sensors zoomed in, and what they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. Human soldiers were fighting in the vacuum of space without environmental suits. Not because they didn't have them, Seok-jin could see the suits stored nearby, but because they were training to fight without them. The humans moved through the airless environment like they had been born there, using small thruster packs with impossible precision. "How are they breathing?" whispered analyst Wonho, staring at his instruments in disbelief. "They're not," replied Minji, checking her readings twice. "They're holding their breath, for over 20 minutes at a time." But that was just the beginning of what the observers found disturbing. Human soldiers were practicing combat scenarios that would have been considered impossible by any other species. They fought in environments ranging from the crushing depths of gas giant atmospheres to the radiation-soaked surfaces of neutron stars. They practiced battles in dimensions that barely had names, using tactics that seemed to violate several laws of physics. Most unnerving of all, each human soldier appeared to be capable of independent command decisions. When their communication systems were deliberately jammed during exercises, they didn't fall apart into confusion like most military units would. Instead, they seamlessly shifted to new tactics, each individual anticipating what their teammates would do without any coordination at all. "General," reported his communications officer, a young Zeph named Hyunbin, "I'm intercepting their training communications. They're discussing contingency plans, For what scenarios? Yunbin's mandibles clicked nervously as he scrolled through the translated text. Invasion by energy beings from higher dimensions, combat in universes with different physical laws, something called zombie apocalypse, which appears to involve fighting their own reanimated dead. And, he paused, looking confused, how to maintain supply lines during time travel operations. General Seokjin felt his compound eyes widen. They're planning for situations that don't exist. Sir, interrupted Minji, I don't think these are hypothetical exercises. Look at their equipment manifests. She brought up a holographic display showing human supply lists. Among the standard military gear were items that made no sense. Weapons designed to harm beings made of pure energy. Armor rated for environments that existed only in theoretical physics. Communication equipment that could function across parallel dimensions. They're not just planning for impossible scenarios, Minji continued, her voice shaking slightly. They're equipped for them. The surveillance mission continued for 3 days. The Zeph observers watched human military units practice for every conceivable threat, and quite a few inconceivable ones. They saw soldiers training to fight while blind, deaf, and paralyzed. Because those were conditions they might face in unknown alien environments. They watched humans practice coordinated attacks across impossible distances, with timing so precise that it suggested each soldier had an atomic clock in their head. They saw tactical flexibility that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. But most terrifying of all was what they didn't see. No superweapons. No reality-warping technology. No planet-destroying devices. Just humans, using relatively simple equipment with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. Dr. Minji compiled her report during the journey back to Council Space. As the galaxy's leading expert on military evolution, she had studied the warfare patterns of every known species. But humans didn't fit any of her models. They're not advanced, she dictated to her computer. They're optimized. Every human appears to be the result of millions of years of evolutionary pressure that's selected for survival in impossible conditions. They don't have better weapons than us. They are better weapons than us. When the Zeph ship returned to Council Space, General Seokjin called an emergency meeting of the military leadership. Representatives from 50 species gathered to hear his report. The human threat level assessment was incorrect, he announced without preamble. They are not a moderate military power with primitive technology. They are the most dangerous combat-capable species we have ever encountered, and they are deliberately concealing the full extent of their capabilities. Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembled officers. Admiral Na-young leaned forward in her chair. Evidence? General Seokjin activated the holographic display. Every human soldier is trained to function independently as a complete military unit. They prepare for combat scenarios that we cannot even imagine. Most importantly, their intercepted communications suggest they have detailed battle plans for fighting every known alien species in the galaxy. The room erupted in alarmed chatter. Species that had been enemies for millennia suddenly found themselves looking at each other with new understanding. They were all potential targets of human military planning. There's more. Seokjin continued, waiting for quiet. Our psychological profiles suggest that humans view warfare not as a last resort, but as one option among many for solving problems. They plan for war the way we plan for weather, as something that might happen requiring appropriate preparation. Dr. Minji stood up from her seat. Council members, I've spent decades studying how species develop military capabilities in response to threats. Most civilizations reach space because they've learned to avoid conflict. Humans reach space despite being optimized for conflict. They represent a completely new category of intelligent life. The implications hung in the air like smoke from a burning world. Humanity wasn't just another member species to integrate and manage. They were a fundamental change in the galactic balance of power, and nobody knew what they really wanted. The Great Assembly Hall had never seen anything like it. Representatives from over 300 species filled the massive amphitheater, creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, growls, and electronic tones that the translation systems struggled to process. President Hyun-woo of the Galactic Council stood at the central podium, his crystalline body reflecting the lights from dozens of different atmospheric requirements around the hall. The mood was tense, fearful, and increasingly hostile. The motion before us is clear, Hyun-woo announced, his voice carrying across the vast space. 3 major coalition governments have formally requested that humanity be subjected to military restrictions and mandatory monitoring. The question is whether we act on fear or wisdom. Near the front of the assembly, War Chief Dongwook rose to speak. His experience at Kepler had made him the unofficial expert on human military capabilities, and his voice carried weight with the warrior species. President Hyunwoo, Dongwook began, his translator rendering his growls into diplomatic language. I have faced human forces in combat. What I witnessed was not normal warfare. They turned mining equipment into precision weapons in less than a minute. They disabled my entire fleet without killing a single crew member. This is not the behavior of a typical military force. Murmurs of agreement rippled through sections of the assembly dominated by military-focused species. They fight with impossible precision, continued Dongwook, then immediately offer aid to their defeated enemies. They are either the most advanced tactical computers we have ever encountered, or they are something entirely different from the rest of us. President Hyunwoo's crystalline features shifted to show concern. The political situation was becoming impossible to manage. Human colonies were expanding faster than any species in recorded history. Their technology seemed simple, but proved devastatingly effective. Most disturbing, intelligence reports suggested that humans had contingency plans for scenarios the Council couldn't even imagine. The matter requires resolution, Hyunwoo declared. I propose a formal demonstration. Let humanity's finest military unit face a combined galactic force under controlled conditions. If they lose, they accept restricted expansion and monitoring. If they win, they receive full membership rights with no limitations. The proposal sent shockwaves through the assembly. Some species objected to the risk, others to the implications of either outcome. But gradually, consensus emerged around the idea of a controlled test that would settle the matter once and for all. When the challenge was transmitted to Earth, Fleet Admiral Sunho read it with what humans would recognize as dry amusement. The aliens wanted to test humanity's strongest military unit against their best forces. The concept was foreign to human military doctrine. There was no strongest unit, because every human military formation was designed to be independently capable of total warfare. Specialized units existed, but they specialized in environment and mission type, not in raw combat capability. Sunho forwarded the challenge to Captain Jiwon of the destroyer Incheon. Her ship was currently running training exercises near Saturn, working with a crew that was, by human standards, barely out of basic training. Captain, Sunho's message read, the aliens want a demonstration. Standard rules of engagement apply. Disable, don't destroy. Try not to make them look too foolish. Captain Jiwon reviewed the challenge parameters while her crew continued their routine maintenance schedules around her. The aliens were offering the Proxima system as a battleground, and bringing what appeared to be the largest combined fleet in galactic history. Interesting, she mused to her first officer, Lieutenant Soman. They're treating this like a major military operation. Should we request additional ships? Soman checked the tactical assessment. Ma'am, the intelligence report suggests their fleet composition is designed for traditional space warfare. I don't see any indication they've adapted for human combat doctrine. Very well. Signal Fleet Command that we accept their terms. 1 destroyer against their combined fleet. The Proxima system became the focus of galactic attention as ships from across the galaxy gathered to witness the test. News networks from hundreds of species broadcast live coverage. Betting pools calculated odds that varied wildly depending on which species was doing the calculating. The combined galactic fleet was magnificent in its diversity and scale. 12 massive dreadnoughts served as command ships, each one representing a different military doctrine. 47 heavy cruisers provided firepower from 17 different species. 312 support vessels handled logistics, intelligence, and specialized combat roles. Admiral Nayoung commanded the combined force from the bridge of her flagship, surrounded by the greatest military minds in the galaxy. General Seokjin coordinated tactical planning. Dr. Minji provided strategic analysis. War Chief Dongwook offered expertise on human behavior patterns. They had planned for months, developing tactics specifically designed to counter human adaptability and precision. They brought overwhelming firepower, diverse weapon systems, and coordinated battle plans that had been tested against the finest military simulations in galactic history. Against all of this, humanity sent 1 destroyer with a crew of 127, commanded by a captain who was still considered to be in training rotation. The battle was scheduled to begin at 800 Galactic Standard Time. News broadcasts provided countdown timers. Military academies across the galaxy prepared to study the engagement as a historical turning point. Captain Ji-won drank her morning coffee and read tactical reports while her crew completed their pre-engagement checklist. To any observer, the Incheon looked like a standard human warship, sleek, functional, and completely outgunned by the massive fleet arrayed against it. "All stations report ready, Captain," announced Lieutenant Soman. "Very good. Signal the combined fleet that we're prepared to begin." Admiral Na-young received the signal on her flagship. Around her, officers from dozens of species coordinated the final approach patterns. Everything was proceeding according to plan. "All ships," she broadcast to the combined fleet, "execute attack pattern Omega. Demonstrate the full might of galactic civilization." The battle lasted exactly 11 minutes and 37 seconds. It began with the combined fleet executing a textbook, multi-vector assault designed to overwhelm the single human ship with coordinated firepower from all directions simultaneously. Energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, exotic matter streams, and reality-distorting fields all converged on the Incheon's position. The human destroyer simply wasn't there anymore. Instead of trying to fight the massive fleet directly, Captain Ji-won had done something that violated every assumption the aliens had made about space combat. She had turned the engagement into a three-dimensional puzzle, moving through space in patterns that seemed to defy physics. The Incheon appeared behind the first wave of attackers, moving faster than its engines should have allowed. Precise energy bursts disabled key systems on 6 ships before vanishing again into what appeared to be empty space. "Where did they go?" demanded General Seok-jin, staring at sensors that showed nothing. His answer came when the human ship materialized inside the combined fleet's formation, somehow having bypassed shields and defensive screens that should have been impenetrable. More ships found their weapon systems disabled by surgical strikes that left everything else untouched. The engagement became a masterclass in unconventional warfare. The Incheon used the combined fleet's own ships as cover, turning their superior numbers into a disadvantage. It employed weapons and tactics that shouldn't have been possible, moving through the battle space like it was following a script that only humans had read. Most disturbing of all, Captain Ji-won's crew maintained perfect coordination without any apparent communication. They functioned as a single organism, each member anticipating exactly what their teammates would do next. When the battle ended, every single ship in the combined galactic fleet was disabled but intact. Crews were alive and unharmed, but their vessels were completely unable to function. The Incheon hung motionless in space, apparently undamaged. Captain Ji-won's voice came over the communication channels, calm and professional. "Combined fleet commanders, this is Captain Ji-won. My apologies for the extended engagement time. My crew is still working through basic training exercises, and we're not yet at full efficiency. Your ships have been disabled but not damaged. We're transmitting repair instructions to restore full functionality." In the stunned silence that followed, one fact became clear to every observer. The human destroyer had never activated its primary weapon systems. Everything they had witnessed was accomplished using what humans classified as defensive and maintenance equipment. The galaxy had just seen humanity's idea of a training exercise, and it had effortlessly defeated the greatest military force in galactic history. The galaxy was in chaos. Within hours of the Proxima demonstration, emergency sessions convened on hundreds of worlds. Species that had never spoken to each other were forming desperate alliances. Ancient enemies put aside millennia of conflict to face what they believed was an existential threat to all non-human life. Ambassador Minho watched the panic unfold from his quarters aboard the diplomatic station, orbiting the Council homeworld. Through his windows, he could see the largest gathering of warships in galactic history, thousands of vessels from every major civilization, all united by fear of humanity. His aide, a young diplomat named Da-yoon, brought him the latest intelligence reports with trembling hands. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "they're calling it the final alliance. 17 major species coalitions have agreed to coordinate military action if diplomatic solutions fail." Minho nodded calmly as he reviewed the reports. The galaxy's leaders were convinced that humanity was preparing for galactic conquest. Every human colony expansion was seen as strategic positioning. Every human trade agreement was interpreted as preparation for war. Every human smile was analyzed for hidden threats. "They're terrified," he observed. "Good." Dahyun looked shocked. "Sir? Fear makes them pay attention," Minho explained. "Now they're ready to hear the truth." The emergency session of the Galactic Council was the largest gathering in the organization's history. The Great Assembly Hall overflowed with representatives, military leaders, and intelligence analysts from across the galaxy. The mood was grim, desperate, and unified in a way that had never been seen before. President Hyunwoo called for order, but the cacophony of alien voices continued for several minutes. When silence finally fell, it was heavy with dread. "We face an unprecedented situation," Hyunwoo announced. "The human military demonstration has confirmed our worst fears about their capabilities. The question before us now is simple. Do we act to contain this threat before it's too late?" Admiral Nayoung rose from her position in the military section. Her defeat at Proxima had been total and humiliating, but it had also given her unique insights into human warfare. "Council members," she began, "I commanded the combined fleet at Proxima. I watched a single human ship defeat the greatest military force in galactic history. They used weapons and tactics that shouldn't exist. Most troubling, they accomplished this using what they classify as training equipment." Murmurs of alarm swept through the assembly. If humans could do that much with training gear, what could they accomplish with actual weapons? "I move for immediate military action," declared General Seokjin, his insectoid features rigid with determination. "Every day we delay, they grow stronger. Every human colony that launches could be a staging ground for invasion. We must act now, while we still have numerical superiority." The call was taken up by representatives from dozens of species. The momentum toward war was building like an avalanche, unstoppable and destructive. That was when Ambassador Minho requested permission to address the assembly. A hush fell over the vast hall as the human diplomat walked to the central podium. He moved with the same calm confidence he had shown during first contact, but now every gesture was analyzed for hidden meanings. Was the way he held his hands a subtle threat? Did his steady pace suggest military training? "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Minho began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "you have asked for the truth about humanity. Today you will have it." He activated the holographic display system, showing images of human worlds and colonies throughout the galaxy. "You are afraid that we haven't shown you our deadliest weapons," he continued. "You are correct, but you misunderstand what that means." The display showed human settlements on worlds that had been considered uninhabitable, colonies thriving in environments that would kill most galactic species within minutes, cities built on planets with toxic atmospheres, crushing gravity and radiation levels that should have been lethal. "You believe our deadliest weapon is some kind of super technology," Minho said. "It isn't. Our deadliest weapon is our adaptability." Professor Yoonji, humanity's leading xenobiologist, joined him at the podium. Her presence was part of a carefully planned revelation that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about human intentions. "Council members," Professor Yoonji announced, "we have been studying your species for far longer than you realize. Every human colony, every trade mission, every diplomatic contact has been gathering information, but not for the reasons you think." The holographic display changed to show detailed analyses of alien worlds, societies, and biological systems. The scope and depth of the data was staggering. Humans had compiled more comprehensive information about galactic civilizations than most species knew about themselves. "We have been studying you," Yoonji continued, "because we want to help you." The statement hit the assembly like a physical blow. Help them. The galaxy's most dangerous military force wanted to help. Ambassador Minho resumed control of the presentation. "Your ancestors fled from dangerous worlds to find safety among the stars. Mine stayed on Earth and made it safer. We don't conquer problems, we solve them. We don't destroy enemies. We optimize situations until there are no enemies left." The display now showed something that made representatives from dozens of species gasp in recognition. Human colonies weren't just surviving on hostile worlds, they were transforming them. Poisonous atmospheres were being converted to breathable air. Radiation-soaked surfaces were becoming fertile ground. Worlds that had been written off as uninhabitable were becoming gardens. Every world we settle becomes more productive, more stable, more capable of supporting life, Minho explained. We don't expand to conquer territory. We expand to create better worlds, Dr. Minji, who had spent months analyzing human military capabilities, suddenly understood something that made her compound eyes widen in shock. Ambassador, she called out from her position in the scientific section, are you saying that human military doctrine is designed for terraforming operations? Minho smiled, the first genuine expression of emotion he had shown during the entire presentation. Dr. Minji, human military doctrine is designed for making impossible situations possible. We train to fight in every conceivable environment because we expect to live and work in every conceivable environment. We prepare for impossible enemies because we plan to solve impossible problems. The implications began to sink in across the assembly. Human weapons weren't designed for conquest. They were designed for construction. Human soldiers weren't trained to destroy civilizations. They were trained to build them. There's more, announced Director Youngman, stepping forward to join the presentation. As head of human colonial operations, he had access to information that would shatter every assumption the galaxy had made about humanity. Council members, Youngman said, humanity has been a member of galactic civilization for far longer than 3 months. We have been quietly working with your most advanced species for decades. The holographic display showed a network of connections that spanned the galaxy, trade relationships, technological exchanges, cultural programs, and scientific collaborations, all involving human participation, all predating official first contact. The species you consider most advanced, most peaceful, most successful, they have all been working with human advisors and specialists for years. The ecological crisis on Altair 7 was solved by human biotechnology. The resource wars in the Vega system ended when human mediators introduced new economic models. The breakthrough in quantum mathematics that revolutionized galactic technology came from joint human-alien research. War Chief Dongwook rose slowly from his seat, understanding dawning in his yellow eyes. You've been managing galactic civilization from behind the scenes. Not managing, Ambassador Minho corrected gently. Gardening. We find problems and solve them. We identify conflicts and resolve them. We locate suffering and end it. It's what humans do. The Great Assembly Hall had never been so quiet. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species sat in stunned silence as they processed the revelation that their greatest fear was actually their greatest opportunity. The galaxy doesn't need to fear humanity, Professor Yunja concluded. The galaxy needs to decide whether it wants our help openly or, if you prefer, that we continue working quietly in the background. President Hyunwoo's crystalline features shifted through several different configurations as he struggled to process the complete reversal of everything he thought he knew about the galactic situation. Ambassador Minho, he said finally, are you telling us that humanity has already been integrated into galactic civilization and we simply didn't realize it? Minho's smile widened. President Hyunwoo, humanity invited you to join our galactic civilization. You just didn't know that's what the invitation was. In the months that followed, as the truth about humanity's role in galactic affairs became widely known, War Chief Dongwook found himself in an unexpected position. As one of the few beings who had direct experience with human capabilities, he became humanity's liaison to the reformed military species. Standing on the observation deck of a joint human-alien research station, watching ships from dozens of species working together on projects that had seemed impossible just years before,